Imran, we learned in our American history books that it was July 4th, 1776, when the Second U.S. Continental Congress, meeting in Philadelphia, approved the Declaration of Independence, which officially announced the severing of ties between the American colonies and Britain.
Wow. And you can fast forward that 240 years down the road. We're standing outside Jefferson's library, and we'll be talking to the Chief of Manuscript Division at the Library of Congress, Dr. James Hutson. Let's go check it out.
Yeah, let's go find him.
And we're joined now by Dr. James Hutson, who's the Chief of the Manuscripts at the Library of Congress. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. Sure. For the sake of our international audience who might not understand what this is about, could you please explain the significance of the Declaration of Independence?
Well, the significance is that it was not the legal document declaring the United States independent. That happened on July 2nd. It was an explanation addressed to the world about why the United States had declared independence. The legal document, the legal action was on July the 2nd, and some of the founders, including John Adams, wrote his wife a letter that day saying, "This is a great day. It should be celebrated forever with bonfires, parades, et cetera, et cetera." But we've completely forgotten that date, and it's now we celebrate the adoption of the Declaration of Independence on July 4th.
And that day, both July 2nd and July 4th, when independence was established for the United States, what kind of record do we have of what the reaction was at that moment after so much struggle?
Well, it wasn't established on July 4, 1776. A war had to be fought for 7 more years to establish it. This was simply a kind of a hope, actually. The documents we have, well, Thomas Jefferson, of course, is the author of the Declaration of Independence, and the Congress, the Continental Congress, agreed on a motion was introduced in Congress on June 7th to declare the United States independent, but that was postponed until from June 7th to July 1st. But in the meantime, they were certain that this was going to pass, pretty certain. In the meantime, they appointed a committee on June 11th to write a declaration explaining why the United States was doing this, or what caused it to declare independence. And that committee contained Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, a man named Roger Sherman, and Robert Livingston. It was appointed on June 11. So Jefferson was appointed the draftsman by the committee because he'd written some things earlier in the state of Virginia that impressed everybody. And he worked on that until June 28th. And we have his original draft that he composed between June 11th and June 28th here, with corrections, as he noted corrections by Benjamin Franklin and Adams. And there are plenty of markups on it. He changed a lot of words. For instance, he changed the idea that we hold these truths to be self-evident. He'd first written sacred and changed it to self-evident. And there are other changes. He wrote inherent and inalienable rights and struck out inherent. So lots of strikeouts and changes made probably between June by the committee.
Okay. Which is so interesting because now those passages have become so iconic for the nation.
Yeah. But there were more changes were made by Congress when the committee was, as I said, had completed its work by June 28th. The declaration was then reported to Congress, who made major surgery. The largest excision was a long passage, an eloquent passage denouncing King George III for perpetuating the slave trade. That was deleted by Congress in deference, as Jefferson later said, to some of the Southern gentlemen who were keen to continue importing slaves. That's, of course, one of the great ironies of the Declaration, declaring all men are created equal by slaveholders who wanted to hold more slaves. But that passage was struck by Congress, and some other changes were made by Congress. before the Declaration was adopted on July 4th. The original Declaration adopted on July 4th wasn't treated very well by our countrymen. It was there. It was in the patent office for a while. Apparently, it was said to be on a wall exposed to direct sunlight.
Oh, wow.
It then ended up in the State Department, and in 1921 the State Department turned it over to the library, and it was housed about 50 yards from here in something called the Shrine. So we had it until 1952, and then it was removed to the National Archives, where it now rests. So what we have is the draft.
And how is that preserved here?
It's preserved very well. It's in a vault, a massive vault in another building, in cold storage and light limitations and so forth. So it's preserved with the best kind of preservation technology that we know of.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your
Sure.
time.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Hutson.
Oh, sure.
Great
Okay.
to have you.
Okay, yeah.
Pleasure to talk to you. Hey, that was a pretty interesting conversation, Alex.
Yeah, very interesting to get the history of the Declaration from Dr. Hutson. And actually, if you guys want to see more, you can check out our Facebook page. Dr. Hutson gave me a tour of Thomas Jefferson's library, and so you can see that on our Facebook page.